Wednesday, everybody! Doubleheader night. That's what. I have a special guest, Motor City Mad Mouth Show with the Motor City Mad Mouth in the house, and I'm joined by my special guest, and obviously a newest member of our network, is former New York Mets manager Mickey Callaway. Welcome to the big show. Welcome to the network.
Thanks a lot, Scott. I'm really excited about it. This is going to be wonderful.
Oh, this is going to be unbelievable. This guy had to put up with me a couple of years during spring
That's
training over in
right.
St. Lucie, and I dropped every bomb that I could hit him with press conferences. He stood there, took every last one, and said, "Bring him out, kid, bring him out." And you know what I did? Mickey kept answering them, and guess what? Now he's going to have to answer a lot more questions nowadays because it's him and I, and nobody else in the Big Apple media to run interference.
That's
People have
right.
always been good, so I never had a problem with the Mets anyway. Per se. I'm glad to have you on. Everybody, let me give you a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about with Mickey tonight. Obviously, he's a baseball lifer. He's going to give you a basic background about some of the places that he stopped, and we'll talk about a lot of baseball and a couple of things that he's had to deal with as well off the field. That he's some issues that he's getting worked out. My goal is to make sure that when we're all said and done with Mickey, not only do we become a good potent 1-2 combination at talking baseball, but he's going to fit in with the rest of the network with our baseball analysts as well. I wouldn't bring on a person like Mickey unless my gut feeling told me he was the right guy to bring on, and to be able to bring on, have my own internal skipper talking about the game that I played for a lot of years and have covered for over 4 decades, to me is an absolute thrill. And I am happy that Mickey is joining forces with the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network to provide expertise in the baseball area. And a guy that I trust very well will be able to be a complement to what we're doing here on the network. Any questions or comments at all about that, Mickey?
No, I thanks for the introduction, Scott, and I look forward to you grilling me some more on these podcasts like you did when I was managing. It was great. You know, challenging questions are the best, and I think us baseball lifers, we thrive off of those. So I'm looking forward to
Well, you'll get a steady diet of
it.
that.
I know I will.
You know what it's like before, not like you don't know what my style is like for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, real. All right. So anyway, Mick, let's talk about a little bit about your background on yourself. Why don't you just give a general overview, and then we'll talk about your title with the Angels. So we'll just step by step.
Yeah, so obviously grew up playing the game that we both love. From the age of 6 on, I was just into baseball like no other. My dad named me after Mickey Mantle, named my brother after Casey Stengel. So he was a huge Yankees fan growing up and a huge baseball guy. And he played college ball, and I got to go to see all of his softball games when I was growing up. And it's just a game that I love. And, fortunately enough, when I was little, I could throw the ball really hard and got to kind of thrive at the high school level and I got drafted out of high school in the 16th round. I tore my ulnar collateral ligament the second game of my high school season in high school, and wasn't able to pitch the rest of the year. So I was kind of a draft and follow in the 16th round by the San Francisco Giants, and chose to go to college at the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, which has a great historic baseball program. And I was lucky enough to play under Don Kessinger, the ex-Cubs shortstop, and he managed a little bit in the big leagues. So it was the perfect fit for me to go to college and learn kind of the professional way, because he kind of ran our program in a professional way, and was lucky enough to get drafted in the 7th round by the Tampa Bay Rays, the Devil Rays at the time. And I was one of their first, I was in their first draft, actually. We didn't even have a spring training complex at the time. We trained at a field that Babe Ruth did spring training on back in the day. It was one field. We had a half field in the outfield, and it was just a great experience. So great organization to get drafted by. They're great at player development. I was with them for a few years, was able to make my major league debut in 99 after getting drafted in 96. And then, I had a really good game. My major league debut was 6 innings. I got the win. I went 2 for 3 with an RBI against the Expos. and it was kind of downhill from there. It was like making an eagle on the first hole at golf and then trying to live up to it. So, I was able to play for quite some time and kind of bounced around from, the minor leagues and major leagues. I got traded over to Anaheim Angels in the winter of 2001. And then we fortunately won the World Series in 2002. So I was able to get a World Series ring. I think I made 6 starts down the stretch for those guys at the end of the year, and was able to help them out, in the playoffs, not on the roster, but pitching to our own hitters to keep them fresh, so we could go win a World Series. And that was a great highlight of my career. And then I went over to the Texas Rangers, pitched with them for about a year and a half, and then after that, I signed to go over to Korea and played in the KBO for 3 years. And really, really enjoyed my time in Korea. What a great country, great baseball fans. And then I had Tommy John surgery at I think around the age of 32. Came back in about 10 months and pitched in Taiwan, and then that was kind of the end of my career in 2009. And then in 2010, I started coaching in the Cleveland Indians organization, the now Guardians, and was able to kind of climb the ranks with them and become Terry Francona's pitching coach when he got hired. And, that we made a great run at the World Series there in 2016, and we had some great teams, and I was lucky enough to have some really, really great pitchers. So they kind of made me look good. And then I was able to go on and, interview for a couple of managerial jobs. I interviewed with Philadelphia Phillies on one day, and then took the train over to New York and interviewed with actually it was the opposite. I interviewed with the New York Mets, took the train over to Philly, interviewed with them for about 7 or 8 hours that day. And when I got out of my interview with the Phillies, Sandy Alderson had called me and offered me the job to manage the New York Mets. So that was definitely a great day in my career. I really enjoyed that. And then from there, a couple of seasons with the New York Mets, and then I went on to be the pitching coach for the Anaheim Angels during the COVID season, which was kind of a surreal year. No fans in the stands, getting tested every day. That was kind of tough, but we made the best of it.
Yeah, that was the first year I started covering the Miami Marlins. I was covering the Tigers for a lot of years, but then the Marlins was another story. So you gave a lot there. So let's go ahead and backtrack a little on some of that. First of all, what was it like to work with Mike Scioscia?
So Mike was amazing, right? Paid attention to detail, really stressed the small things in the game. If you look at our roster in 2002, it wasn't the most talented roster. I mean, we had some great players, obviously, but what really stood out is the way we ran the bases, the way we situationally hit, and all of those real, small ball type, things that Scioscia stressed on a daily basis. He was a master motivator at playing the game the right way. So, there is something to that. You can't just go out there and try to hit home runs. You have to be a team. You have to come together. We had great chemistry, and our guys played as a team, and we ended up winning the World Series. So Mike was fantastic.
So are you surprised Mike Scioscia has not landed a second managerial job after the successful tenure that he's had with the Angels?
Yeah, I think if Mike really wanted it, he could probably find one. I'm sure he had a great run with the Angels, and if he really wanted to, I'm sure he could, because he's a great manager.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers job open. He's been open a couple times now. It won't be open for a long time. We'll get into that on future shows. But if there's anyone who would have been a natural for it would have been Mike Scioscia for sure.
No doubt about that.
So let's talk about the specialty. We know that pitching is your specialty. What is it that you like about pitching the most?
Obviously I grew up pitching, and that was kind of always my main position. And I have a passion for the mental side of the game. I have a passion for prep work leading up to pitching, mechanics. I love learning how the body works. And then, all the latest technology has really helped pitching coaches
Right.
try to explain things to pitchers to get them to really understand in their brain what their hand is doing, how the ball's coming off of their hand. And I really embraced that along the way. And it really helps you be a solid teacher of, all facets of baseball and pitching. So, I just have a passion for it and I love it. And I love working with kids and young adults.
Yeah, see, and I'm a catcher. I love catching. I used to like to go out there and take those mound visits and get in the umpire's ear. Uh,
That's right.
uh, Cyberuski, glad you're on. I'm going to get to your Savannah Bananas question in just a moment. And we're going to also talk about the Callaway brand, Joshua, in just a couple of minutes. So I'm going to put those out. I'll keep them in the chat. And when I get ready to talk about them, I'll post them up here for sure. I want to address these questions right away with Mick while they're fresh in my head. Yeah, one thing I liked about catching is I was awful in the outfield when two catchers didn't show up for Little League. And my dad had me managing. It wasn't a dad being biased for a son. Nobody wanted to play the position. And I raised my hand. I got in there, the only position I could play because you're staying in the game at all times, pouring out the pitchers. And once I got the position, I never give it back. I used to talk to the umpires, manipulate. I knew all the framing stuff. I could imagine what would have been like to be your catcher. Really good. One of my good friends, Chuck Hernandez, who you probably have heard of before.
Oh yeah, Chuck is one of my best friends. I love Chuck.
Yeah, we go back to our days with the Fort Lauderdale Yankees, and we always used to joke around about him about his pickoff move. And yeah, I had to have a good pickoff move because I couldn't get anybody out.
Yeah, I remember him telling me that when he was my pitching coach in A ball, and then he ended up being my bullpen coach in New York. Great man, great baseball man.
Oh yeah, he sure. I love Chuck. Every time I see him, we always exchange hugs. I think I got his number somewhere. I don't know, but that's I used to love framing pitches, getting the umpires, agitating the hitter, and my brother once and I joked around about it. I was a pitcher, said guys like me make you better because I can frame pitches, and he never said about. But it's just a little lighthearted sibling stuff.
Yeah.
But let's address these other lighthearted questions first, and then I want to get to things about the Tommy John surgery since you had to experience
that.
All right. First of all, Cyberuski asks, what's your opinion of the Savannah Bananas?
You know what? I obviously it's successful. So I'm sure people first and foremost want to establish something that's entertaining to fans and makes a little money in their pocket, and it seems to be working really well. I know a lot of these, so I'm working with some younger kids nowadays with Easley Baseball Club here in Memphis, Tennessee, and these guys take some time off to go see the Savannah Bananas, and they just absolutely love it. So I'm up for anything that brings more attention to the game of baseball. I know they do some quirky stuff, and I've seen some highlights, but I have to say some of those guys are really, really talented to be able to like bounce the ball between their legs and throw a strike to first and get a guy out on a ground ball. Obviously it's not real baseball, but it's definitely entertaining to a lot of fans. So I'm all for anything that sheds our game in a great light and brings more interest to it.
Well, they're the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when I was a young kid wanting to go see the Harlem Globetrotters, and I finally got to here in Memphis, and it was amazing. So, I can see that kids would really enjoy that.
Yeah, my dad took me to that, and the rest of us, on my birthday out at the old Olympia Stadium in Detroit. It was pretty good stuff. Dr. Doris, a pretty good question, too. I like this one. I don't talk a lot of golf, but your name makes it really easy to do it. Since as you have any association with the Callaway branded golf club, the Big Bertha, if you ever want to go on a date with Big Bertha, she'll help you get rid of some of your frustrations by smacking an innocent ball someplace.
Yeah. Well, I play plenty of golf. I wish I was related. I wish Eli or whatever his name is was my uncle, but unfortunately not. I get that question all the time, but I'd love to play golf, but I hit Titleists. So
there you go. There you go, Joshua. That's a good question. I really like the fact that you brought it up, and it's definitely pertinent to what we're talking about for sure. All right, so now we talk about the fact that you had to deal with Tommy John surgery. So do you feel Tommy John himself personally belongs in the Hall of Fame? Pioneer, right? After he had the surgery, I know he's borderline, but still, you don't just evaluate him by wins and losses, but his contributions to the game.
Right. I agree with you there. I think that maybe he should be in. His name is synonymous with a famous surgery that most pitchers these days, because we throw so hard, are having. And if you look at his numbers, they're right up there with a lot of the Hall of Famers. I think the main thing with him was the longevity. I think he had the second most years pitching in the big leagues behind Nolan Ryan.
Right.
288 wins. You're close to 300 wins. I think that he's right up there with a lot of them, and he deserves to be in. At least just because of the surgery, at the least.
Yeah, I've been maintaining that position for a long time. I'll maintain another position. My good friend Don Mattingly belongs in there too. I hope he eventually gets in there.
No doubt about it. And I tell
Yeah.
you what, with Don, he's the kind of guy you want in the Hall of Fame. What a fantastic, fantastic person, unbelievable coach. Obviously we got to see him playing when we were growing up, but this guy can really coach the game of baseball.
Don Mattingly and I worked together a few years, and we're still good friends. I have his phone number, and I'll hopefully see him later on this summer when the Jays come down. We'll talk about the Jays a little bit later in the broadcast for sure. But Don knows me real well. If he knows I got something on my mind, he gives me a nice little talk. All right, what's up? I need to talk to you a little bit. He's one of those types of people, the most personable guy. He, like you, he's become a good friend and a brother when you know somebody for a while. And after a while, it doesn't become just a one of those things where I know who you are. I'm not no stranger who doesn't know what you're all about, that kind of deal. And that's
Right,
really
right.
kind of have with Don, let alone what we've developed over the last few years as well. So let's talk about your experience as a Mets manager. Sandy Alderson brought you on board. Obviously managing in the Big Apple, which is the number one media market in the country. We know the Mets haven't had quite the success as the Yankees, but what was that experience like for you to manage in the number one media market in the country?
You know what? I absolutely loved it. First and foremost, I loved managing. I loved the challenges of it. I loved the daily routine of it. I'm a very routine oriented person, and I really really enjoyed it. Managing in New York, and I've said this to a lot of people. It's like playing in the playoffs in Cleveland, but you're doing it every day of the season, right? In
Right,
Cleveland, you have two or three reporters. It's the buzz is there, but it's not quite playoff caliber buzz until you're actually in the playoffs. But when you're in New York, it is a playoff atmosphere every single day. It's do or die. It's win that day, and everybody's elated. It's lose that day, and everybody's down in the dumps and depressed. And it makes for a great, great, and exciting season. So I absolutely loved every part of it.
okay. Let's transition to an area where we've talked about it before that you ran into some off the field difficulties. Okay, and we're not going to sugarcoat the thing. There were some allegations about sexual harassment that were aimed in your direction. I'm going to let you. It's a career hiccup, so I want you to go into more details about what transpired during this entire situation.
Yeah, so what happened was I made some mistakes. I had some consensual relationships throughout my coaching career, and I made some bad decisions. I think, and then I'm very remorseful for that. I'm very sorry to anybody I made feel uncomfortable in any way. I think you'll get to know this. I'm just a super positive, super kind guy. I try to be as kind as I can to everybody. And sometimes some of that kindness led to some friendships, and then those friendships led to some flirting on both sides. And
Right.
that's just not a very intelligent thing to do in the workplace. And I paid the price for it. Now, I will say this: those articles that were written were not very accurate. They obviously sensationalized it so it would be a bigger story than it really was.
Right.
I'm not discounting some of the mistakes I made. The consensual mistakes, even if it's consensual workplace romances and things like that, there's just no place in baseball for that. And I got suspended for it. I've been eligible for 2.5 or more years now to come back and coach if I'd like, and that's my ultimate goal. I'd love to get back in the big leagues. I've learned from my mistakes. It'll never happen again. And, I think that it's unfortunate that the way everything was portrayed, I didn't really get a chance to tell my side of the story. This is actually the first time I've ever addressed it with anybody. I thought if I addressed it at the time, it just wouldn't be productive. For my kids' sake, I have teenage girls, and I just didn't really want to bring any more attention to it than was necessary. And I really felt like no matter what I said with the things that were portrayed in the wrong way, that I wouldn't get a fair shake at that time. And, I think now's the time to come out and talk about it just a little bit like we are, and tell everybody how remorseful I was. I apologized at the time. Having workplace romances, there's just no place for it. It leads to bad things. And that's what happened. So I paid a price for it. I've done my time, and I'm ready to get back into the game of baseball if people will have me.
Right now, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to put it in a manner for which some of the things that I came across my direction was the fact that were there any photos exchanged in some of those consensual emails at all that you want to talk about? We're not asking going into any details at all, but sometimes when people get into more visual things, it becomes a little bit more difficult for other individuals to comprehend the nature of the allegations.
Right. Yeah. So that was not portrayed in an accurate light either. There's a
Right.
lot
Okay.
of nuance to that on both sides, and
Right.
I think that I'll just leave it at that. That is
That's fine.
something that was two consenting adults
Right.
sharing things, and like I said, you just there's just no place in baseball or most businesses for workplace romances, because it can lead to bad outcomes.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a fair answer. I'm just trying to make sure that when people go out there and watch this, they say, "All right, well, he addressed the photo situation and he gave a basic idea, and that's as far as it's going to go." I want to make sure that when people watch this tape here, they're going to realize by your body language and the tone of your voice that okay, the truth of the matter is, I say this all the time: you weren't charged with any crimes at all.
Right,
You
right.
didn't
Yeah, there
serve
was
any jail time either. So
never right. I mean, there was never a report to anybody about sexual
right,
harassment. Actually, even in the article, there was no mention of sexual harassment. It was more the other outlets picking up the story and then saying it was sexual harassment allegations. So, all that's unfortunate. But there was obviously never any official report about me doing anything inappropriate, and nobody had ever told me they were uncomfortable. If I had ever thought I was making anybody uncomfortable, I would have stopped. I just wasn't doing the right thing when I should have, and it led to some consequences that I faced. And I'm a very, very apologetic and sorry for those things. And I know those things will never happen again if I get another chance.
well, and that's fine. That's all I'm looking to try to make sure they're going to do. The only thing about this society, which is so common, is a lot of times people are quick to rush into judgment. For example, the Trevor Bauer situation, which we'll talk about at a later date when you're on a bigger crew, but we're just addressing it privately right now. The guy's been essentially blackballed for playing baseball, and a lot of the allegations were dumbfounded, is what they were, because they didn't prove to be true. I'm not going to go into specifics on that. And I felt that he deserved a second chance to play ball, and that's what my position is on it. And we'll let you just mention whether you feel the same way, whether he should get another chance or not.
It's always tough. The only thing I know specific circumstances are on what happened to me.
Right.
I don't know the total background. You're just not going to get the truth online. You're not going to get the truth
Right.
about things in the media. So it's really hard for me to comment on whether he should be back in the game, because I don't know the ins and outs of his situation.
Nobody's going to sit here and say what I have to say is going to manage because he can get in the game, and every owner has a reason why they're not going to bring him in. But let's go to that situation with the Duke lacrosse situation too. Everybody rushed to judgment on that one, and that turned out to be a situation which was completely unfortunate. I'm not going to get away from those situations because it's easy for everybody to talk about the court of public opinion. But I've always said innocent until proven guilty, and sometimes in the court of public opinion, guilty until proven innocent doesn't kind of work that way. At least, now, unless I failed my American history courses in government classes, I have no idea.
Right.
So as I continue on just a little bit more, what steps or therapies have you taken that have allowed you to learn to become a better person? And do you have any interaction with a lot of females now that were they're sympathetic about what you went through?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a lot of people reach out to me, and the people that really know me know that those articles weren't very accurate. So,
Right.
I've been a huge proponent along the way of women in baseball, and I've defended them, and that, I think my admiration for them being in baseball probably led to some of the issues that I had because I had respect for those people, built relationships, friendly relationships with them, and it tended to at times to go a little bit further, and I made mistakes. But I think that women in baseball is an amazing thing. They have a lot to offer. Our mental skills coordinator in Cleveland, she had just about as big of an impact on our pitching staff and our team as anybody, and she was a joy to work with. And I was a huge proponent of hers, and I had her back at all times. And I just think it's a great thing for baseball.
Well, we all know down here in Miami, Kim Ng was a big part of the Miami Marlins and the
Uh,
general manager, and she's doing incredible things now with the women's softball league, which we'll get into on another date on the other shows underneath just baseball. So there, women are starting to make some noise in this game for sure, and the fact that you're able to address it in a very open way, like we're asking you to do tonight, to make sure that people realize this guy made a mistake. I've seen people make bigger mistakes like you. I'll say Michael Vick, I hate to bring him up, but Tony Dungy took it upon himself. Hey, Michael, I don't mind helping you out, but let's just get it figured out. And he did. People do deserve second chances for a human.
yeah, right, absolutely. I mean, we're all human. Some of us have to have our humanness displayed in the public court, like I did, and that's not the funnest thing. But we all make mistakes, and you're right. I believe everybody deserves a second chance, and deserves some grace, and especially if they've shown that they can change.
Did you have to take any therapy as part of the things to do anything on at all in terms of going to classes or any type of doctor to address your situation at all?
So I proactively did all that on my own.
Okay.
So when I talked to Rob Manfred again,
Okay.
that he would reinstate me. So I took a bunch of online courses
Okay.
that pertain to workplace appropriateness, and I feel like I learned a lot in those courses. I mean, I took hours and hours of those things, so Rob would know that I've done my due diligence, and that I wanted to change, and that I learned a lesson, because I learned a huge lesson. And I think that people need to understand that it's easy to fall into something like that, like we talked about. Everybody's a human being, and workplace romances just don't turn out very well. I understand that they lead to about 45% of marriages,
Right.
um, as well. So that's just a tough thing to balance in that, because if somebody becomes bitter, then the worst can happen.
Well, so, well, I mean, at least the commissioner will see that you were trying to be a self-starter, taking upon yourself to make amends to the situation
Yeah,
kind of. So
absolutely.
hopefully, as you get out and you speak about this more freely, people will see you behind the camera and the sincerity and the tone of your voice. And okay, stuff happens. Time to move on. This is 2035 for at least another 6 more months anyway. So
Right. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I learned a huge lesson, Scott, and I needed to change that behavior. And the only way to change your behavior is to learn how to do that and to be proactive doing it. And then that's what I did.
all right. Well, I think it's a good time for station break. What do you think, Candy? I'm just gonna go over some things with the station. We'll come back. We're gonna talk some more baseball with Mickey Callaway, my new baseball analyst here for the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. So, Candy, take it away. Give me about 30, 40 seconds, whatever, and Mickey and I are gonna be talking some more baseball.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40 plus years in the media business and how it has evolved, old school media versus new school media. Get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great other content. Go check out the website. If you want to advertise, you can always call Scott, 954-304-4941. Or if you want to be a guest on a show or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to you, Scott.
Thank you, Candy. We talked about Terry Franconi. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. What was it like working for him? And have you talked to him in recent years at all? Because I know he had a little faith. He had a lot of faith in you when you were with Cleveland.
Yeah, I keep in touch with Terry, just a couple times a year just to check in, see how his health is doing, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, amazing manager. Like not just X's and O's, but the way he deals with his players, the way he deals with his coaches. He's very in tune with what everybody needs on a daily basis to stay motivated, to keep everything going in the right direction as a team. And I learned a ton around him. He is a terrific motivator. I can't give high enough praise for him as a manager for sure.
Has he ever reached out to you while you're going through this dilemma?
Yeah. You know what? We talked a little bit, and he's a guy that is always concerned about the people that he's close with. And obviously we chatted to just check on things and see how things were going, because he cares about his players and his coaches, and he always showed that.
Good, because the next time you talk to him, I'm giving you a homework assignment. You tell him I've been trying to get him to accept my connection request on LinkedIn. Hey, I'm working with a guy now in the Southern Florida area. Sent you a connection request. You've looked at his profile. It's okay to accept the connection request. Okay, he's legitimate, and I'm going to be working with him. It wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, absolutely. But you got to let me be on that one. I want to grill him a little bit as part of the media.
Well, then I'll tell you what. Here's what you're going to do. Then I'll give you. I'm the one giving you homework assignments. You get up on the floor. You get him on here, and I own this platform. Just remember that, okay? I own it. The three of us will do a show together, and then we'll go out there, and you can grill him out. I'll teach you every trick you need to know in the media. All you got to do is be coachable. Fair enough. I'll put you on the same show. We'll make the time for that. You have nothing to worry about that. I own it. I'm the boss.
All right. We'll try and make that work for sure.
No problem. All right. So let me ask you, what are you doing right now?
So I don't know if you remember the name Ed Easley. He was a catcher, minor league catcher, played in the big leagues a little bit with the St. Louis Cardinals. And he established some roots here in Memphis when he was playing in AAA. And he started the Easley Baseball Club. And I think he's got, I don't even know how many teams he's got, probably 70 teams or something like that. Anywhere between 8 years old to 17 and under. And I am kind of his roving instructor. I go around to mostly his older teams, 15, 16, 17-year-olds, and kind of make an appearance and help players out and help coaches and just kind of and there to answer questions and just be a guy that can drop some baseball knowledge if somebody needs it, and maybe give some pointers here and there. And I'm also doing some pitching lessons here in the Memphis area and Oxford, Mississippi area. Okay. And I'm really enjoying giving back to the young kids and just being part of the great baseball community here. The Little League baseball in this area has always thrived. It was when I was a young kid. and just an exceptional place to grow up and play baseball. Obviously, we've had a ton of great players come through and make it to the big leagues, and that continues on to this day. And it's just great to be part of an organization. Ed Easley is a top-notch individual, and he runs a first-class organization, and I'm just thrilled to be part of it at this point.
You should have Ed Easley come on one of our shows on Monday night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be great for people to hear the background of running a, youth development program, because that's what it is, right? We're developing players and trying to get them into college and to strive at the college level so maybe they can go on and play pro ball.
Well, after you get your feet wet with 108 inches baseball talk, we're going to bring on Ed Easley as a special guest, and then we'll have him talk to our guests. So that's something we'll do in a few weeks or so. I just have to get a few more trips under my belt first before I can figure out where my own bed is. I haven't really got to this week anyway. But we'll talk about that. So, all right, we talked a little bit about this before. So what do you want to do long term? Do you want to go back into coaching? I know right now managing seems to be a little bit of a stretch, but or am I going to be good enough to mentor you into broadcasting? I have to figure that one out.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I've always set my goals high. I think that's why I was able to succeed. If you don't have great goals, then you're not going to, make it to the highest levels. I would love to manage a Major League Baseball team again. And now, you know what, I'll do whatever it takes to do that. I'll work in the minor leagues. I'll be a pitching coach. I love being a pitching coach. So I'll do whatever it takes to get back to that level. I would not mind coaching in college at all. I've done that a little bit. I did that 1 year in 2008 during my Tommy John surgery hiatus that I was taking from pro baseball. And I just want to teach the game. And I'll be happy teaching it to 15-year-olds or 35-year-olds. This is the best game on the planet, and I love it, and I have the best passion for it, and I feel like I really help players be better.
Well, you're 50 years old. My God,
I still got plenty of time.
You got a lot of baseball in you. So we talked about earlier today about Pete Rose. Are you disappointed that he finally got in the Hall of Fame, even though he had passed away? Although it was probably the worst kept secret on the planet.
Yeah, I just for his own mental sake, it would have been nice for him to know he was going in. But I'm sure that that he's up there, looking down and enjoying his name. That's gonna be in the Hall of Fame. So I'm excited he's in. He's a human being. He made some mistakes, and I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame because he was one of the best hitters ever, if not the best. And that's what this Hall of Fame, this Baseball Hall of Fame, is all about.
Okay, I heard Michael Kay today. I like to watch some of his stuff on Instagram. Since you manage in the Big Apple, this is probably a really easy question for you to answer. I think, personally, Aaron Boone gets too much unjust criticism. I think he's doing a heck of a job in New York, and Michael Kay defended him to the big. How on earth do you get rid of a guy like him? You're a few games away from winning the World Series. You think that New York fans, Little League Yankees, that World Series are busting to get over that once and for all? I mean, let's face the reality. You have higher tiers of playoffs more than you did years ago. Right.
No, you know what? I think that's just the nature of the beast in New York. And I think, being on that side of it, it motivates you. It makes you be better and better. You're not going to take that job lackadaisically because there are consequences for losing. And I think it makes you become more competitive. Aaron Boone is obviously doing a great job there. It's not an easy position to be in. He's obviously thriving in it. He's very calm. I love the way he handles the media. He's doing a great job. And obviously, I think his relationship with the Yankees front office is obviously solid because he does the right things. And, there might come a time where the fans get so riled up that they put some pressure on the front office to make a move. That's just the nature of the beast. And, if that happens, I'm sure he'll go on to manage somewhere else and have, just as much success. But, I think he deserves to be there and continues to do a great job.
I think he does a great job, too. I wish I like Michael Kay. I know Michael Kay well enough to know that he you can be a homer as a broadcaster all day long, Mickey. You really can. And but he comes across as the most objective homer that I've ever seen. If that makes any sense.
Does he? Yeah, I haven't
Well,
listened
no,
to
he
him too
does.
much, but
Yeah,
that's
he does his preparation work. He knows every bit about the other side of the opponent as the other. He's very fair.
yeah,
I,
that's
I,
awesome.
I like his
That's the
style.
way it should be.
So today, another Metro Detroiter got a $22 million gift to leave New York named DJ LeMahieu, designated for assignment. What are your thoughts about what happened with DJ LeMahieu? It realized that he couldn't play third base. His arm couldn't have the arm strength. Jazz Chisholm, that's his natural position. Of course, Tigers are the beneficiary. Gleyber Torres moving over there.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about DJ LeMahieu getting up there in age, being designated for assignment. Of course, $22 million to leave isn't the worst party gift I've ever seen either.
Yeah, well, I think that people get paid on what they have done and not what they're going to do. I think
Right.
that's the history of the game. I think everybody starts to struggle towards the end of these long-term contracts.
Right.
And you've seen it, with everybody, Hall of Famers, it's happened to them. And, I think that there's something to be said about organizations that go ahead and, just we're going to take the best players and we're going to play them. And I think it's their duty to the fans, and I think it's their duty to the rest of the team to take whatever steps are necessary. And if you have to designate somebody for assignment, you have to do it, even if they're making a lot of money. The good part about baseball is the union is so strong that they've set it up where DJ LeMahieu is going to get his pay that they agreed on. And, if that's the best baseball decision, the Yankees have to make it. And so does every other team. You can't sit there and not play the best players. This is the big league level. The fans deserve the best players on the field. And if any team has taken any other approach than that, then they're doing the fans wrong, in my opinion.
The Toronto Blue Jays have been on their best streak since 2015. Today they lost, but they have a 10-game winning streak that was snapped by the White Sox. What are your thoughts about what the Toronto Blue Jays are doing in a division, which has always been arguably the most difficult division out there? They lost to the White Sox 2-1. Their 10-game winning streak is over. But the fact of the matter is they're making some noise up there. And I saw a game last year over at Rogers Center. I think that's what they call it, Sky Dome, whatever. And hey, one thing, I always pull for Toronto. I really do. I think that it's good that when Toronto wins, it's good for North America.
Yeah, when I think of the Toronto Blue Jays, I think of, I look back over, I don't know, about the last 5 or 6 seasons, maybe a little bit longer. They had a plan and they're sticking to that plan, right? They're sticking with the manager. They knew there would be some bumps and, maybe some down years.
Right.
And if you do that and you build a culture the right way and stick to your plan, then
Right.
eventually you're going to start winning. I think that some teams take the approach of we're going to rotate through managers and players, and the problem is you have to build this team camaraderie to
Right.
really, really strive and to be the championship team you want to be. And that goes for consistency in coaching staff, consistency in the players that are there. You got to have a young core, which they developed and brought up. And then you're going to start winning games. I felt we were on our way with the Mets to do that. I think
Right.
before I got there, they won 70 games.
Right.
We won 77 my first year. We won 86 my second year. We had the young core of McNeil, Alonso, and all those guys. We had some decent pitchers. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
one of the best pitchers on the planet, and Jacob DeGrom,
Right.
and Zach Wheeler was in there. So we were kind of striving that way. And then unfortunately, Sandy had some issues, had to step away. And then everything kind of changed. But I thought we were well on our way to really developing something special. I could feel the excitement in the clubhouse, the camaraderie on the team. And then, it kind of got broken up a little bit. But they went a different way, and now they're thriving too. So there's more than one way to skin a cat, but I think the Toronto Blue Jays have really stuck with their plan, didn't panic when things weren't going great. And that's a testament to the people running their franchise and the owner being patient and trusting the people that he entrusts to run the baseball operations. And I think that's why they're having the success that they are now.
Well, it didn't hurt that they signed Vlad Guerrero Jr. either and made a commitment to the fan base, let alone the organization. We're going to sign this guy, and he's willing to stay there. I think his stack is even bigger, knowing that he has a chance to be the number one kahuna in Canada, let alone what he does in the United States, North America. When you're able to, this as well, being a manager, Mickey, that if you're willing to spend on your key players and make them building blocks, that changes the attitude of the culture of the whole entire organization, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It shows first and foremost loyalty, right? You
Right.
take a young guy like Pete Alonso before they become a free agent or
Right.
Vlad, and you give them some money that they deserve, more money than they would get, just not, just kind of in arbitration or whatever. And that shows loyalty to the players. The players thrive off of that. They think they can be next. So you get a better caliber of player that's going to work really hard to achieve something because they know that the Toronto Blue Jays or whomever they play for has their back and is going to take care of them. So that goes a long way in the clubhouse when teams do that.
So you mentioned Sandy Alderson. So I'm going to go into this just a tad, okay? He brought you there, hired you as a manager of the Mets, okay? You say when he left. Can you clarify? When he left, obviously you probably saw the writing on the wall that maybe you're not going to stay there much longer. Is that true, or how would you want to?
Right. So that was an interesting time, right? He
Right.
signed me to come there. He was there with me for 1 year and then
Okay.
stepped away, right? He was having whatever health issues. He
Okay.
stepped away from being the GM, and then we signed Brody Van Wagenen,
Oh,
who was a player's agent at the time. He came
yeah.
in, and I tell you what, Brody did a really good job, in my opinion. He was very thorough. He gave me, a shot to continue to manage for a year. And then, after we won 86 games, I thought we had a pretty good season. I was very proud of how hard the players played and the development that the young players were making. And unfortunately, after the season, they let me go, and we're going to hire Carlos Beltran, and then I don't know what happened with all that, a bunch of crazy stuff with the cheating and all that. So they ended up with Luis Rojas, who's a tremendous baseball guy and was on my staff at the time. But I would have loved to have a third year, fourth year to really see where that could have gone. But it just wasn't in the plans for them. And, I can respect that.
Well, I mean, when people look at your managerial record, they're going to realize that you were over the 500 mark by a couple of games.
That's right. Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think when I came there, the Mets had only had two or three winning seasons in the last 12 years, and so I was proud of us putting up some winning numbers when I was in my tenure there.
I've always had a philosophy that you always want to leave a situation better than it was when you inherited it, and that I believe that with your record being what it was, much less the second year, that you did exactly that. Yeah, you fell short of getting that third year, but we'll never know. Time to move on, not look back.
That's
But
right.
You can say that much, that you had an over 500 record in a media market. It's just a matter of whether or not the right opportunity comes and whether or not the organization is going to say, all right, enough time heals all wounds. So hopefully this will be one of those.
Absolutely, right. I learned a long time ago, you can only control the controllables, and the things that are out of your control, you move on, you understand decisions, and you move on and make the best of the next opportunity.
Exactly, and that's right now your next opportunity is behind the microphone with me.
That's right.
and answering questions that I think that I know you can easily handle. So you like working with kids. How are things related in terms of, are you enjoying the downtime to spend more time with your family a little bit so that you're able to step back, look back at your career? You still have a lot of years left to go, and just kind of you feel like you're in the right environment. You say you're doing the show from your parents' place and you have your place down in Mississippi. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I am loving it. I've had, obviously quite a few years now to really hone in on, baseball is a time consuming thing. I don't think people truly realize, at the field from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. at night. So it is a time-consuming thing. I missed a lot of my kids growing up, which is unfortunate. But our job as men is to go out there and provide for our families, and I did it in the best way I thought I possibly could. And it's been nice to be kind of home a little bit the last few years, and really get to see my parents more, and my brother and sister more, and their family. I have a really close family that's amazing people, and we're all very close. So it's been really good in that aspect. And then working with the kids has been just a godsend to me. It's so refreshing to be able to get with these young kids. I taught a couple lessons before this podcast, and just being around, kids from 10 to 17 who love the game and want to get better has been just good for my soul, and I'm really enjoying it.
All right. In light of what you've had to deal with, do you feel that you have, to me, a better relationship of the other gender now, more so that you've had to experience what you've gone through, and that things only figure to get easier going forward, whether you continue to date, whatever? I'm not asking personal questions, but you have a much better understanding, respectful nature of the gender in light of the adversity you've had to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, look, relationships are difficult, right? Marriages are difficult. Any relationship with anybody is going to be difficult. But I think the main point, and I think what needs to be expressed, is I understand way more than I did back when I made some mistakes, and some of those mistakes were 10 years ago, and times have changed, things have changed. And I respect women in baseball, women in careers, and there's just nothing good that can come out of workplace flirtation and romances, even if it's consensual, obviously. Unless you get married, right? I know a lot of people that got married. I know a lot of baseball players that have married reporters, and coaches that have married reporters, etc. But it's just not worth the risk. And I learned a big lesson, and I learned, in researching everything, that there can be added pressure to these women, and they can feel uncomfortable if people are asking them out or whatever. So it's just something that's just not wise. And I learned a lesson the very hard way. And I'm contrite and apologetic about it. And I definitely want to move on and show people that would not be the case in the future.
Well, my goal is to make sure that this show here does exactly what you set it out to be, that people will see you on camera, the nature of the responses of how we've talked about this situation. We haven't dodged anything. We're just trying to make sure that, as Paul Hardy would say in our industry, you get the rest of the story, and that you have the chance to get Mickey Callaway's story out there in an objective, straightforward way, so that people can understand the sincerity and the nature, how the message is conveyed. There's an old lesson in media called "The Media is a Message," and that was out by Marshall McLuhan. And that's actually in my book, by the way, too, Mick. And the media is a message. Now it's just not the FCC anymore. It happens to be podcasting, internet radio, whatever the case may be. And that's all we're trying to do, is make sure that with the technology is being as advanced as it is, that you'll be able to do that. And I think we've had a really pretty good chat room tonight. JD Wyatt says Mickey looks incredibly young to be a former manager for the New York City.
Well, thank you.
I like that point, JD. Very nicely, man. And yes, that's a compliment. JD Wyatt's one of our good young. He's one of our good commentators on the network. You'll have a chance to meet him over time. So
well, I look forward to it, JD. Thanks for the compliment.
Yeah, it is. I mean, hey, JD, since you're tuning in, meet your newest teammate. This guy is really good. Mickey and I go back. The one thing, JD, he's got a copy of my book. People have to understand, though, and you and I don't too well, Mickey, is relationships, man. That's why you're on here with me, because you treated me great, and now the shoe's on the other foot.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Scott, I appreciate the approach that you're taking with this. And, I try to be as kind and as personable as I can to everybody. I tried that with the media throughout my career, and I appreciate how hard the media's job is on a daily basis to come up with stories that cannot be easy. So, I tried to answer every question the best I could throughout my tenure. And it's a lot of questions, right? When you're a manager, you're doing it 400 times a year, probably. And I enjoyed all of it.
Well, you're the face of the franchise. You have to do the best you can to
Absolutely.
represent yourself in the best way possible, as well as the organization. Candy Eveling, I want you to come on for another station break. And just so you know, the Sports Exchange is after the Motor City Madhouse show. And I'll let everybody know that Mickey Callaway is going to be our regular baseball analyst on Monday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. I get him first here on the Motor City Madhouse show. And Mickey's doing a heck of a job, and I'm proud to have him as my new tag team partner and teammate. Go ahead, Ken.
The South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. Talks about Scott's 40-plus years in the industry and how media has changed over those years. It even has a picture of a young Scott Morganroth with a young Tommy Lasorda. Go get the book today. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of other great content, so go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're interested in sponsoring a show or advertising with us, call Scott 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to you, Scott.
All right, Katie, can you please put J.D. Wyatt's most recent comment up? I really like it. Oh, yeah, Mickey and the Southern Pride gentlemen will definitely get along great. My motto is be blessed, not stressed, and just be kind to one another doing it. Relationships are certainly crucial, and a dirty C word of mine, communication plays a big role in relationships. Let alone the fact that I majored in communication at University of South Florida back in 1986. So there you go. That's what it's all about. J.D. Wyatt is one of the guys that we've had for a while in our system. He's developing very nicely. He's on Thursday night with Candy Eveling, who just read that station break, and you'll have a chance. He'll come on once in a while on a Monday night, but that'll be you and I. And I think down the road, my plans with Mickey Callaway. Not only is he going to be a regular on Monday night, but we're going to plan at some point down the road as he gets more and more established with the company that we're going to do a show of our own, and we'll divulge that information later as time progresses. But I'm just so glad to be reunited with this guy. He's like a brother to me, and all I've ever asked any manager, I'm not going to try. I had an opportunity many years ago when I talked to Larry Bird, and I've worked with Larry Bird and Don Shula, and you'll find out when you get a copy of the book. It's within the next few weeks or so, whatever, I can get it out to you. But the thing is if you approach somebody with the right language, they're going to be nice to you. If you start to become a jerk out the front, then you're not going to get a whole lot out of them. And I once asked Larry Bird after a press conference, said, Coach Bird, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. I mentioned by Coach Bird. He said, I know you weren't one of the better athletes out there, but what made you one of the best players in the game? He said, Scott. And he addressed me by first like you always do, right? And he said, I just outthought everybody, think 3 steps ahead. You don't have to be the best athlete, just outthink people. Play chess, right?
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
and sports strategy is very crucial.
Right, exactly. So the whole idea that I'm telling people is it's about being able to communicate in a way that, listen, we all make mistakes. There may be times where communications could be a little bit better than others, but you have to live with the situation and adjust it as much as possible. Where we all have our moments, so make sure we keep our moments lower. But you were able to manage the number one television market in the country. Let me bring one other thing up before we go to the Sports Exchange a little while. I want to bring up Ryan Braun. Okay, he dealt with the steroid situation in New York, and I think he was fortunate that he dealt with it in Milwaukee. Excuse me, I just want to backtrack for a little second. But it would have been a much more difficult situation had he had a lot more media in New York dealing with it, and it got off easy in Milwaukee PR wise. Would you agree with that assessment?
Oh, absolutely, right. New York, especially Boston, places like that, everything's going to be amplified to the nth degree, and all of those type things. Whether
Right.
it's just you're playing poorly at the time or you're playing great. The good thing is not only will the negative things be amplified to the nth degree, so will doing great things, right? That's the
Right.
wonderful thing about being in New York is if you win a World Series, you're a legend for the rest of your life in that town.
Right.
So you have to take the good with the bad and understand that, hey, if you do a great job in New York, you're also going to be revered for the rest of your life. So, and it kind of goes both ways.
Great point. So, Fernando Vargas, thanks for the kind words. It's a great show. Thanks very much. Well, I just thought I was bringing that up because this show's about giving second chances and having a little bit of remorse and understanding certain situations that they are. And Ryan Braun to me is iconic in Milwaukee, and I know his number's retired, and like Barry Bonds, they love him in San Francisco despite some of the
Yeah.
difficulties. But those will be things that we bring up on future shows. I'm just trying to keep the theme, Mickey, consistent with
Yeah.
what the entire show has been about. And I think you know where I'm going with all of this, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Right.
two players that made a mistake but played the baseball the right way and had great careers. They made some mistakes, right? We're talking about humanity and mistakes, and we all do it. And they paid the price. They're paying the price. They might not get in the Hall of Fame. I'm not
Right.
sure Ryan's a candidate, but Barry's going to pay the ultimate price, not getting his name on that plaque in the Hall of Fame because he made a mistake. But the fact is, he put up some unbelievable numbers and was one of the best hitters in baseball ever.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I mean, you faced them yourself, being on in the National League. So, since you brought up Bonds, I'm going to ask you this, and you're a pitching guy. How did you pitch Bonds as a manager, let alone a pitching coach? You have to pitch Barry a certain way. I'm glad you brought that up. See, this is what I'm looking to develop out of you, Mr. Callaway.
Right.
Because you're leaving me with these follow-up questions, and now this guy is getting it. Okay, he's got it. It's been a little while since we've been doing this, but you're leading me someplace, Mr. Callaway.
So,
That's a beautiful thing. We're taking our big Bertha and driving this Barry Bonds thing a little. How, as a pitching coach / manager, did you end up pitching to Barry Bonds?
let's do it this way. Let's talk
Okay,
about how we approached him when I was with the Anaheim Angels in the World Series
I'll take
in
it.
2002.
Good. Do it.
So here's what Buddy Black and Mike Sosa suggested.
Okay.
Do not pitch to Barry Bonds. You walk him, don't give him anything to hit, and hope Benito Santiago hits into a double play after. And
Okay.
that was kind of the approach we took with him pretty much the whole series. I think we pitched to him like legitimately. We had some situations where it was okay strategically to pitch to him. And I think he hit 4 home runs, if I'm not mistaken. So we pitched to him 4 times. He hit 4 homers. The rest of the time, we really pitched around him. We walked him, made him try to chase. And then Benito Santiago would come up and usually, we were able to handle him a little bit. And that's probably why we won the World Series, because if we had to really pitch to Barry Bonds, he would have hit way more than 4 homers. But he hit those in situations where it really didn't affect us. So, I think the real and I think didn't Joe Madden walk him with bases loaded?
Yeah, I think you did.
Yeah, I think he
Right.
did, right? So, and I know Joe, I think one game walked him 4 times intentionally. So the best way to pitch Barry Bonds is to not throw him anything close where he can get that barrel on the ball because he was going to do some damage.
Well,
That's what was one of the most impressive things about Barry is nobody was pitching to him, and he's still hitting home runs at an incredible rate. That was pretty amazing to me.
I don't know how you feel
Best
about that.
hitter ever.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, and I know you and I are going to get into this a lot as time goes on. I still recognize Hank Aaron as the all-time home run king, not Barry Bonds. That's just my opinion, and I will because of the fact that I think for the reasons as stated, Hank Aaron did need help, okay, to get to that number, and that's all I'm going to say.
Totally understandable.
But I won't put an asterisk by Bonds' walks because he earned that stat.
Yes, he did.
That one. In fact, I'll be even nicer. I won't even put an asterisk next to it. Hit my bats either. He earned that one. So,
Yes, he
so,
did.
so great first act with Mr. Callaway, by the way. Now, man, this is Mickey's story, but our story is going to be continued on Monday night on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. And every Monday night, Scott and Mickey and the group are going to be talking baseball. And we're going to be talking about other stuff. So, any closing thoughts about our first act together, Mr. Callaway?
No, I really enjoyed it. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I am excited to interact with you and your staff and talk baseball. And, let's make it challenging. I want to answer some hard questions. I miss doing that as a manager. And I'm really excited about what's going to happen in the future. I think we can really deliver some great information to the fans and give them kind of a back view that a lot of people don't get to hear, because I've been in those meetings and in the back of the clubhouse and dealt with things, and I think I can really paint a good picture to some of the fans on what it's really like behind the scenes, and I'm excited to do that.
Number one, Mickey, I don't use the word think in my vocabulary. I use the word know.
Perfect.
And I got news for you. I'm going to mentor you in this business. You're going to learn the word no really quickly. And I don't mean N-O, I mean K-N-O-W, my friend.
Yeah, I definitely know, Scott.
You got it first, really? Okay, that's why you have to get to know those words too, right? Or really, seriously, really. Yeah, you got to know what I was all about and say, listen, I haven't changed. All I've gotten is a little bit older, more grayer, a little heavier. I mean, I'm still there. I'm still animated. Huh? What's that?
You still look the same to me, man. You're looking good.
Oh, you're the greatest, I'm telling you. Well, my bro, Mickey Callaway, and I are back. It would be better than ever, but tonight we're on the Motor City Mad Mouth Show. Monday night, he's on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk as long as he wants to be on until he gets a managerial job. We're already making a top look at it. If he gets fired, he has to take me with him. So, right? You on record saying I'm going with you?
Yeah,
or what?
You're coming with me, Scott.
That's it. All right. Well, you know what? Fortune changes next after this show, but I want to thank Mickey Callaway for being on this show tonight. He was very, very sincere about everything that he said about everything that's transpired in his career, and I hope he gets an opportunity to return to the game that he enjoys in his capacity. But in the meantime, I'm going to be a little selfish, and I'm going to make sure he stays along with us for a little while so he gets the right opportunity. So it's meant for both of us to go out there. I'll be in the twilight of my career. This guy will be back there, and I'll be his publicist and still doing all this other stuff in between, running around.
Well, I appreciate it, Scott.
So meanwhile, this does conclude this edition of Motor City Mad Mouth Show. Sports Exchange is next. Candy Ebling and I will be on there. George Eichhorn, Jacob Christner, and we'll see whoever else decides to join the big show. Mickey, we have some more work to do on Monday. You'll stay on for a couple minutes after we get done here to make some plans for Monday night. But meanwhile, perfect. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. The chat room's been great. Joshua Cyberuski, JD Wyatt, Fernando Vargas, I appreciate your participation in the room. We talked about everything. We even got the Savannah Bananas in there and the Callaway Golf Club. And like I said, I have Scott towels named after me. I haven't gotten a residual on any of them. This poor guy here's got a Callaway Club and gotten residuals on any of those. But that said, I guarantee Mom and Pop, at least Mickey and I have something in common. By the way, another little irony is my dad's name is Mickey, so it's pretty hard to forget your name anyway. So,
oh, really? Oh, yeah, great.
Yeah, Mickey Morgenroth. So. Yeah, of course, we all know Mickey Mouse, but we're not.
That's
right. Or Nano, as you were named after. But anyway, that does it for this edition of the City Mad Mouth Show. On behalf of Mickey Callaway, my new baseball analyst, my name is Scott Morgan off the Motor City Mad Mouth. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you shortly.